Hey man, how you doing?
Doing good today.
I know your name, but they don't know your name. What's your name?
My name's Patrick.
Patrick.
Hathaway.
Patrick.
Oh. I know, it's not.
Nice.
Listen, I go by my government name nowadays. Ain't no secret.
Your government name or your mama name?
Both.
Okay, Patrick. You made it, man. Episode 2.
Episode 2.
This is brand new, man. So I hope your friends watch and see what's going on, and people that needs a little bit of help, they hope they watch too. What are you doing right now? I like to always ask guys what are they doing right now, and then we can jump to the beginning of how it all started. What are you doing right now? What are you doing?
Right now, I'm working at a treatment facility. I'm nighttime counselor tech, so I get to work in recovery, which is really important to me. It keeps me connected to where I came from, because it wasn't always great, man. It wasn't always great, and being able to give people a helping hand up is super important.
Okay, I like the way you said it wasn't always great. So, how did this start? Like, how did it start? You go from the beginning, or wherever you think it started at. This journey.
It started at the point where I felt like I was different, no matter where I was. I grew up in a split family. Like my father and my mother, they split up when I was really young, and I never understood why. That was the big thing, and no one would ever tell me. They would never give me like a straight answer, and that's all I ever wanted. I was like, I just want to know, because I could tell there was something off. No addict or alcoholic is stupid. Like, we're all very smart, and I was always good at reading people, and I could always tell there was some pain behind my mother's eyes when she would tell me, Mommy and Daddy, they just grew apart. And I could always tell there was a secret. And I kind of learned from that, and I was like, okay, well, if grown-ups are keeping secrets, maybe I should too. And I would never talk about how I felt, really. I give you like a few different emotions, maybe happy, sad, and angry.
That's it. Is that 3?
That's it. There was no spectrum. There was no spectrum.
Okay.
And I usually went with mad, because I got attention that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I remembered feeling different. I remember growing up in, I was one kid at one house and I was another kid at a different house, and I felt like I wasn't accepted at either one. I'm not saying that's the truth, I'm just saying that's how I felt.
Well, I accept you, don't worry.
Well, thank you. So I remember finding out that, Dad had substance abuse problems. And it wasn't the full story. That I just got to hear Dad drank a lot.
Okay.
And I didn't want anyone to know. I learned from the secrecy, not necessarily the secrecy, but just like holding back just enough, because no child can really process that kind of information. But I said, okay, well, I don't want to tell anyone about this. And I remember growing up, I went to a private school. 1st to 8th grade, private school.
Private school.
I know.
So you've always been a smart ass. I mean,
yes.
I mean, an intelligent guy. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I like to keep
no,
it
you had it right the first time.
Okay.
You had it right the first time. So I went to private school, and there were 200 kids combined from 1st to 8th grade.
Okay.
And I remember, it was a religious private school, and I remember I didn't really buy in. I didn't really buy in. I was kind of told, okay, this is what you believe, this is how we're going to pray, this is how we're going to practice, and I didn't feel like I had a choice. And I hate that. I hate feeling like I'm controlled or that I don't have a choice. Because at that moment, I just want to rebel and I want to do something different. Actually, not even different, the exact opposite of what you tell me. So, my family didn't have a whole lot of money. Grandparents are the ones sending me to private school, and I remember the kids at school, they would go in on me about that,
What do you mean by go in? Like, they'll crack jokes on you?
Yeah, crack jokes on me, never let me forget.
Okay.
Never let me forget. And, I wasn't always in shape. I was a little fat kid, too.
Well, you look good now.
Well, thank you. It took some effort. But, I mean, I was a little fat kid, and I remember the nickname that was coined was Patty McFatty. Oh, I'm telling you, cut me right to the quick. Yeah.
Okay.
Kids are mean.
Yeah.
Kids are mean. And if you don't come from the upbringing that they come from, if you don't look like they do, if you don't believe what they do or like the things that they like, they tend to ostracize, and push you away, make you feel different. So I remember as soon as I got done with that, I went to public school. And I was so happy.
Public school where are you from, matter of fact?
Frederick, Maryland.
Maryland, okay.
I know. Born and raised.
Maryland boy. All right.
I know. Haven't moved out of I lived in Thurmont for quite some time, but in Frederick County.
And that's Maryland too, okay.
But I remember going from 1st to 8th grade to high school was a complete culture shock.
Okay.
I went from a school that had 200 kids 1st to 8th grade to a graduating class of 1,200. And that's all I wanted. I felt so different. I've been picked on by, I was going to, after school care, after public school, or after my private school, and it was at a public school. And there were kids there that made me feel different too, because I'm coming in and I'm wearing my uniform. I got the logo on the polo. I'm wearing khaki shorts. I haven't really grown out of the khaki short phase, but there were always kids who would get me there too. So I never felt comfortable. Didn't feel comfortable at school. Didn't feel comfortable at home, either home. And going into high school, man, like graduating class at 1,200, and I was like, yes, this is it. I can finally wear what I want to wear, and I can blend in, and I can do what you're doing, whether it be the drugs that you're doing, or the clothes that you wear, like the music that you like, just so that I can feel like I'm a part of somewhere. And it didn't start off like in a bang. It was like a weekend. It was like a weekend thing when I actually started getting into drugs. And first time I got high, it was weed. It was it was available. It was cheap. It was disgusting. It was some stuff that probably came from Mexico. Like, it was awful, baby, awful. People today would be like,
Yeah.
But me and my friends, we went to the woods and we had all our paintball gear on, because we had planned to go paintballing the next day. I'm 14 years old, going to the woods, and I'm terrified, because I knew my father had substance abuse issues, and people had talked to me about it growing up my whole life, like, don't wake the snake, like, don't put one in you. And like I said, I'm rebellious and I just want to try. And terrified, but I just wanted to belong, and these two guys had finally, welcomed me into the inner circle. I was like, yes, I belong. And, some people have the experience, they don't get high the first time. I got really high the first time.
And that was your new inner circle?
That was it.
Okay.
That's where it started.
And this was during high school or after you graduated? Or this
Ninth grade.
Not 14. Okay.
14 years old, 9th grade.
Smoking weed.
Smoking weed in the woods, paintball gear.
Okay.
And didn't hit till the way back. Until way back to the house. Because I had friends come over for a sleepover. And on our way back to the house, bam.
You're high.
And that was it, man.
How'd you feel? Like, how did the high make you feel that first time? Like, what was it like? Like, was it good? Was it great? You couldn't wait to do it again? Or you was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die?
I wanted it to last forever. I no longer felt different. I no longer really cared what anyone else thought.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like my emotions were crushing me. And I started causing damage around the neighborhood that night.
Just from weed?
Yeah.
That night?
That night. Paintball guns lit up the whole neighborhood.
Okay, so you were just shooting people houses?
Yeah.
What were
Each
you doing with the
other,
paintball
houses, cars, everything.
Okay. And that was fun to you at that time? Like,
right.
It was actually fun. Okay. All right.
The damage started immediately.
All right.
And it was...
And how long did this process last with just the weed and terroristic? No.
Oh,
what is that called when you just cause damage?
That's terrorizing. Yeah, you're right.
Because I forgot what it's called. You know what I mean?
Vandalism.
Vandalism. So you were just a weed smoking vandal in the beginning.
Oh, Probably a couple months.
And then it started to progress, or
It started to progress. I was working for a little Italian restaurant, mom and pop Italian restaurant, first job, high school, and after a few months of, just the weed on the weekends, maybe every other weekend, whatever it was.
so weed and vandalize everything, and boom.
Right. Back to the house, take off all the clothes, hide the stuff. We asleep. We've been here all night.
All night.
All night.
Gotcha.
So, probably a few months, and I'm working at this mom and pop Italian shop, and they have a whole alcohol selection, but, I was always chosen to close down the kitchens. And I would start taking the bottles of wine and shoving them in my backpack and taking them home. And I didn't think that the way that I, drank and smoked weed was different, right? But I'm sitting there 14, 15 years old in my basement, because my room was down in the basement of the house, drinking a bottle of wine by myself. Not to get...
At like 15 or 16. So we're like 16.
Well, younger than that, 14, 15.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
in my room late at night by myself, not to get a buzz, but to get blackout. Throwing up in my...
Already.
Already.
Oblivion.
I mean, it was never, it was never, I just want to do a little bit. It was never just, we'll save half for later. It was like, I'm going to use till I can't use no more, and I'll pass out. And if I have some left when I wake up, cool. If not, I'll get more.
And it was like that from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Okay, so now we're like weed and alcohol, but it still wasn't a problem for you yet in your mind.
In my mind, no. The problem was that my mother caught me.
Okay.
All right.
That was the biggest problem?
I remember waking up one morning and I went to go lean over because I know I had gotten blackout the night before.
Okay.
I had thrown up in a trash can, and I'm like, all right, good, she didn't hear anything, right? She was in the room right next to me, her and my stepfather. And I reached over and looked in my book bag, and all the bottles were gone. Reached in the front pocket, my cigarettes are gone. I'm like 15 years old, something like that. I'm like, oh man, I'm hit. I'm hit. I knew it then. I knew I got caught. And I started getting, she started hitting me with UAs, urinalysis. Because she knew that,
She was giving you urines at home?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Absolutely.
So that's actually a great mom. Like,
No, my
the way she
mother
did that.
was, best mother.
You probably hated her then, but you loved her.
Couldn't stand
But
it.
now it's like, oh man, she
Like,
was
why
great.
don't you love me? Why don't you know that I need to do this, right?
Right.
God.
I got you.
Just let me live, right? I'm a
Okay.
kid. I'm supposed to do this.
All right.
Mother was all, amazing mother. And I skipped over a little bit. At this point, once I started smoking and drinking, I was getting caught. But this was after I moved back in with Mom. For my 9th grade year, I started living with Dad. And, Dad was doing the best he could. I skipped over a little bit about his background. He was a paranoid schizophrenic and an addict. He dealt with dual diagnosis.
Okay.
In recovery for 15 years when he passed away.
Nice.
Passed away clean and sober.
Shout out to Dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was living with him for 9th grade, and although he had been in recovery, he hadn't really had to be a dad like that involved for that kind of time with me. It was weekend dad. In 9th grade, getting to know Dad, moved in with him, and he was always at work. Especially at nighttime, because he was working in recovery as well, working at a recovery house and running a recovery house. He was trying to give back as best he could, and it was difficult for me and him to mesh, and we got into a big argument, and we kind of, I couldn't follow rules. I'm sneaking out, and he said, if you can't follow the rules, why don't you go live with your mother? And I took that as, Dad's kicking me out, Dad don't love me, I ain't talking to Dad no more, screw you.
Good.
Yeah. Totally resentful. And I didn't talk to him for another 3 years. And so, at the point where I'm drinking and smoking every day, on the weekends as much as I can, I'm living back with Mom. And I got caught. I'm getting UAs. I I stopped for a while.
Like you wasn't doing anything.
Right.
On your own accord or mom's help?
Mom's help.
Okay.
There were consequences. There's UAs, there's drinking, but the substances aren't the problem. The problem was that she wouldn't let me do what I want to do if I'm getting caught with dirty urines.
Okay.
So about the time I'm 16, about to start driving again, I'm going to lacrosse camps because I like to play sports when I was in high school, and I'm going to lacrosse camps and I go away for a week, and it was I'm staying in the dorms at this college. It's like 3 or 4 days, and I finally feel a part of again. And there's guys there who are doing what I'm doing, and I bring a couple of cartons of cigarettes with me. And one guy brought a nice big bag of weed, and it wasn't like the stuff that I was smoking in the beginning.
It wasn't that brick pack.
It wasn't the brick
crap.
pack, half of it seeds. You smoking,
Yeah.
seeds and stems and everything. No, this was some upgrade. And he said, listen, man, I'll get you high if you give me some cigarettes. And I said, well, Mom's gonna catch me. He goes, she'll never find out. I said, okay, that's all it took. That's all it took, just a little prodding.
Mm-hmm.
And right back to it. And it did, it wasn't a long progression. I caused so much vandalism and mayhem at the lacrosse camp that I had to leave. They asked me to leave.
Oh, so every time you smoked marijuana and drank, you vandalize and terrorize and
Yes.
break stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Because I don't really respect the rights and the rights and the feelings of others when I'm using.
Okay.
So, get kicked out of there. I'm not getting UAs anymore. I'm about to start driving, and I get my permit. I'm still, going to school every day, getting okay grades, and it was when I started driving that it started kicking off. Really started kicking off. I caught my first arrest at I think I was almost 16 years old.
Okay.
And I caught I don't know if they charged me with the second one, but I know I got charged with the first felony. I got charged with fleeing and eluding.
So what happened? Like, you can't just rub that. Come on. They're watching, man.
So, I'm intoxicated. I have 5 other people in my car.
Okay.
Intoxicated. I'm high. I have, we had just copped. We got a couple bags of weed. I had a scale in my car. Now, I wasn't distributing and I wasn't selling. I didn't want to get ripped off. So I would bring a scale with me to make sure that the dealer was on point.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
We get a couple bags of weed and the dealer gives it to me in 2 bags. And I get pulled over. I didn't use a right-hand turn signal. And I was either too intoxicated to know, or he didn't turn the red and blues on over top, but I didn't realize there was an officer behind me for a good 3/4 of a mile. And I'm in the car with my friends, and all I see is high beams in my rear view. And, I like to cause havoc when I'm high, and I'm like, yo, we about to pull over and hop out on whoever this is. Funny story, I pull over in the health department parking lot.
Health department.
Yeah, health department parking lot.
That's something.
The officer pulls in behind me. He asked me to get out of the car. Places me under arrest, and I didn't understand why. I was like, what's happening? And he was like, well, you were running from me. That's fleeing and eluding. I'm going to take you to jail. I'm going to search your car too. And all my friends get out of the car. They find the weed. They find the scale. They ask if it's anyone else's. I'm like, no, it's mine. So I don't know if they charged me with intent to distribute, but they definitely charged me for possession and hit me with a bunch of different charges.
Okay.
This was shortly after an accident I had had.
You had an accident in the car as well.
Yes.
Mm.
Were
you under the influence in this accident too?
No, I think this was the morning after.
Okay.
Morning after, I tried to stop my own vehicle from rolling down my driveway, which, don't try that. The car is heavier than you.
Oh, you were outside the car?
Yes, I was trying to push the car back up my driveway. It died in the driveway on my way to school, and the car slid me, my elbow caught a tree and it broke my handbag. And caused a lot of tendon and nerve damage, compound
Handbag,
fracture.
what's that?
Broke my hand backwards.
Oh, I thought you said you broke your handbag. That's what it sounds like.
No, broke my hand backwards through the headlight.
Okay.
Glass of the headlight cut tendons and nerves, and this was important. I'm glad I didn't skip over this.
I wouldn't let you, don't worry about it.
This is where I met opiates.
You met him?
I met him.
Nice
Full
guy?
force.
Nice guy in the beginning?
Oh, the best.
Best friend.
The best friend.
Okay. And how did that opiates thing start?
Well, I had I broke my hand and I got taken to the hospital, and I started going into shock because I lost a bunch of blood. I'm in an intense amount of pain from the bones being broken in my arm, and they shot me with a drug called Dilaudid. And I remember sitting there and I'm shaking. I'm holding my hand together because blood's coming out, and I'm sitting there. I'm shaking in the gurney. And they tell me, we're about to give you something for the pain. I said, all right, go ahead. Like, quick, let's do this. And didn't even take 3 seconds once it hit my veins. And I dropped. The pain was gone in my arm. I don't know that it was gone, I just didn't care. And I remember laying there, I'm bleeding everywhere. They're having to cut my clothes off. My mother's standing there with me because she was the one who had to drive me. She's standing there, tears rolling down her face. Because she's terrified looking at her son broken and beaten like this. And I remember just looking up at her and saying, Mom, why are you crying? I feel great. I feel great. And I remember thinking in my head, this is the only feeling I ever need. Only feeling I ever need. And they gave me a bunch of, I believe it was Percocet or Oxycontin to go home with once I got out of the hospital. And that was where I fell in love.
Okay.
That's where I fell in love. So at the time where I got arrested, I wasn't still doing those. I may have either run out of them or my mother had hit them because she could tell that, I couldn't control myself.
So you didn't really need as much as you were taking, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. So they had been put away, and I caught my first arrest. I got the felony charge. I, got a public defender, got off on, just about everything, pled to a few things, got on probation, which I don't think I ever completed a probation until I got to recovery.
Okay.
But it didn't stop. Like, I was just trying to find drugs that I could get away with or alcohol that would be out of my system. The health department where I got arrested was the health department where I had to go for IOP and counseling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nice how it comes full circle.
Yes, sir. The signs was already like here. This is where you're supposed to be.
Right.
So how did the progression with the opiates get bigger? Or how did it progress, basically?
Well, the opiates, one day, I think I was either suspended or I chose not to go to school. I can't remember. A lot of it's a blur. But I'm at home, and I knew Mom had hit him. And I knew the medicine cabinet where she hit him, and it was able to be locked. And I spent about an hour looking through the house to find the key. I knew she didn't keep it on her. And I tore apart the house, I found the key, and I opened the medicine cabinet, and I just started taking whatever I wanted out of there. Dr. Patrick stepped in, and he started prescribing the dose. And it was probably a lot more than it should have been. Okay. And at that point, I started dabbling in snorting them.
So you was like actually crushing them up and snorting them.
Acetaminophen and all, baby.
Acetaminophen and all.
Yeah.
Good word. What does that mean?
Acetaminophen. When you get a certain kind of opiate, they'll cut it with Tylenol. Okay. So it might be a 10 milligram pill with 325 milligrams of Tylenol in there, and it destroyed my sinuses doing stuff like that. It caused a lot of physical damage. Still deal with sinus issues today from all the stuff I put in my nose. But yeah, that's where it started progressing, and of course I ran out because no supply lasts forever. So I substituted. I'd do whatever I could. the explosion of using didn't happen until I was 18.
Okay.
Like I told you, I wasn't talking to my father for 3 years, and drugs weren't really working anymore. Like it was, it's always more.
Mm-hmm.
It's always more. So, obviously I'm using still, but it became women as well.
Mm-hmm.
Still able to kind of hold a job at this time. I had a girlfriend through high school who stuck with me through a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
3 years of this, on and off using. I've been misdiagnosed bipolar because I'm not telling psychiatrists I'm using, trying to go through different medications. And at this point, I'm cheating on her with like 3 girls. And I'm sleeping around, and I got a couple of them pregnant, and I'm terrified. And I remember I can't even sleep at my mother's house. I'm so terrified. I'm sleeping over at a friend's apartment, and Dad and I finally got a little bit of reconciliation. And he calls me one night, and I was desperate to the point where I was ready to let go of this resentment, and I started talking to him and letting him know what's going on. And we got to meet up and eat dinner and got a little bit of closure to awkwardly take responsibility for our parts, and got to have a little resolution to that. And I'm letting him know what's going on, and he's just laughing and smiling. He's like, "I love you, man. It's going to be fine." And one night I'm working. At this point, I'm working at Firestone's right downtown in Frederick. I'm washing dishes because, like I said, I could kind of hold a job. And, restaurant industry, it's easy to find, whatever you want.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So one night he gives me a call, and I can't answer. I'm at work. I listen to the voicemail on my break, and he says, "Patrick, I really got to talk to you. Give me a call back." I'm like, okay. I get off work, and I'm not, I don't even remember that. I go to my dealer's house, and I start getting high. I'm smoking marijuana that night, and pass out. Don't think about it at all. The next night I'm at work, and I get a call from my grandparents, and they say, "Patrick, we got to talk to you. It's about your dad." And he had committed suicide. He had stopped taking his psych meds for the paranoid schizophrenia, and it only took a few days. It only took a few days of being off those medications, and voices got too loud, and he took his life. That was the point where I lost it.
Does that make you feel like you was responsible because you didn't call back?
Absolutely. There was a whole feeling of assumed guilt with that.
Like if I would have called him back,
right? I could have done something. It took many years to realize that he was probably just calling to say goodbye. So the assumed guilt from that was enough to really just push me over the edge, and addiction went full force.
Okay.
Addiction went full force.
Full force how? Like what? How did it?
Whatever drugs I can get, as much as I can get all the time. Broke up with the high school girlfriend after the funeral. I couldn't even go to my father's funeral without having something in me. I'm smoking weed on the way to the funeral. I show up there blitzed. I don't even remember most of it. I remember one of my childhood friends showed up. That was it. That's all I remember that whole day. Left a high school girlfriend. Left a couple of the side chicks. But one...
That's your dog,
Yeah, that's my dog. She lippy just like me. She
okay.
to talk to her.
All right, come on.
Come on now. We're trying to film. But one of them I got pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
And my mother at this point is not taking any more of my crap. She's done enabling me, and she said, if you can't come home and pass a piss test, you got
Hold up, really quick before you get to that.
Yeah.
Full blown. What do you mean? Like you were just? Was it mostly opiates? Did you do a needle? Did you sniff the? What was it like?
I only ever shot up twice, and
Okay.
it was on the same night.
Okay.
That was later. That was later in the progression.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure.
Sniffing drugs, sniffing coke, I wasn't into heroin yet. It was pills. That's what I could find. Coke, pills, acid, mushrooms, weed, liquor.
No drug of choice. Whatever.
No drug of choice.
So whatever took
The
you
drug
out
of
of
choice
yourself.
was more.